welcome to episode 12 of Mattowarrior's Metal Madness. And this is your host, Mattowarrior, bringing to you the news and views that may or may not reflect the creator's current thoughts all the time because he changes his mind so much. So, speaking of news, let's go to Blabbermouth. Let's see what's going on in the news. Okay, and then we will branch off of that pretty soon because this episode will be about something that has been bothering me about a certain band that got caught with something the other day. But I am at Blabbermouth right now. Let's see. So, former In Flames members perform live with a halo effect for the first time. Never heard them. In Flames. Okay, well, yeah. Buckcherry cancels shows because of a certain virus of foreign origin. Just a question going out there, and I'm not going to talk about politics, but is this just going to be like the thing now, like that if a person tests positive, they're not going to be able to tour, or, you know, like, I know, okay, well, it's a couple of shows maybe, you know, but I mean, are they not going to be able to do, like, are they going to, like, have that at that tight all the time, like, as it's been, like, forever? Just a rhetorical question, you know, don't mind me. Like, 5 years from now, we'll see bands that cancel their tour, you know, or, you know, all the, you know. Anyways, that's about all for that part of it. Not questioning that. It's just a question. I'm not talking about, you know, the politics of it. Just saying, like, how long is it going to last to do that kind of, like, isolating thing with that, you know, as far as that goes. But, I mean, obviously you can't go up on stage if you're sick, you know. That's, the level of performance is not good when you're sick. I don't think I've ever played a show while sick, actually. One of the shows that I played, though, that was the most, I was the most disturbed, not disturbed, but like, had the most problems was one of my best shows where it was, there was a smoking ban in the state. But this was before the smoking ban. This is this town that we played a show at, one of my former bands. It was packed, but people were smoking. And I could not see my guitar some of the songs. I had to play by feel and not even see my guitar because I was so teary-eyed from the smoke because I wasn't used to it. So anyways, let's go on with the news segment of this. Gene Simmons, Kiss raised the level of what a fan can expect for their hard-earned money. Well, I'm not going to talk about that until a couple minutes from now. So just to give a hint or a clue, if you haven't read the subject of the damn video or the damn podcast this episode. Is this the heavy metal version of Spice Girls introducing Venus 5? I don't care about the Spice Girls. Sorry. As I Lay Dying, Great White, new singer, Ace Frehley, Metallica, Accept, which I might actually go to this Accept tour. Priest featuring members of Ghost. That actually would interest me to hear because it'd be interesting to hear. Is that wind? It'd be interesting to hear like what they decided to do afterwards. Evanescence, As I Lay Dying, Papa Roach, Scorpions, Locked the Door and Left the Cruel Reality during the making of Rock Believer. Oh, that's cool. Rise Against. Jason Newsted didn't get Metallica's Saint Anger when he first heard it. I went, what the fuck are they doing? Well, I'm not going to talk about Saint Anger on this episode. However, I'm drinking coffee at the same time, by the way. That's what that sound was. I may do a whole episode about it if people are interested in hearing about what I think about it. Because it might not be what you expect, the people that are listening. They might be surprised, if not outright shocked, what I think about it. The Rasmus announces Rise album releases new single. There's been a lot of Rise lately. Like there was the Hollywood Vampires Rise, and then there was a song by Heat called Rise. Seems like people are doing Rise a lot. Rise. Creator releases music video for Become Immortal. Well, I'll definitely check that out. I really like Creator. I have him through the years, so I'm quite a fan, actually. I saw him twice live, and they're damn good live, too, so even now. Rage Against the Machine, okay. Lamb of God, Five Finger, Death Punch. Is there any more pages to Blabbermouth now? Geez, what is going on? Let's see. Oh. Don't see any more pages. When do they refresh things? News. Let's try to find more news about the metal world. Decapitated new album. That'd be interesting to hear. Candlemass. Wow. There's actually a Candlemass new album. That's interesting. Municipal Waste, Tony Foresta. This sounds like a kind of a salty, sensationalist thing to talk about in this podcast. Okay. Municipal Waste's Tony Foresta doesn't regret creating controversial Donald Trump T-shirt. Fuck that guy. I'm gonna read the damn article because this is interesting. Party crossover. I mean, I'm not trying to be political, by the way. I just think it's funny. Party crossover thrashers. Party thrashers. Municipal wastes were conspicuously absent during the thick of the pandemic in what has become an unavoidable and recurring refrain that... all right, I'm not going to read that part of it because it's kind of annoying. Same old thing you hear all the time. It's boring, I'm just saying. Art of partying... Electrified brain. Where are they talking about this? Okay, it's an interview, I guess. Interesting. Oh, okay. All right. So, why they practice where Morbid Angel practices? Interesting. That's cool. Bumped into. Oh, they don't. Okay, I guess they don't talk to Morbid Angel. That would be pretty cool, though. Let's see. All right, I want to hear about the picture. Well, they talk about it. Where are they talking about the shirt? So, if people don't know what I'm talking about, there was this shirt like that Municipal Waste released, which was very controversial because I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's a picture of our former president. I'm sorry to laugh about this, but the way the picture was done, I don't know why it's funny, but it's kind of messed up. Okay, I admit. Okay. It's him blowing his brains out with a gun. Now I don't endorse anything like that. People doing that kind of imagery though. Like I just wanted to hear what he said, what he wanted to say about it. Like it's very interesting hearing people's points of view. I would actually go as far as like if they were talking about even our current politician in charge, like a shirt like that, I'd read the article too because I'm just interested in what these guys have to say about that. Like that's a very provocative imagery. It was kind of cartoonish, the picture, so that's probably why it's a little more humorous to me, just the way it was made, the shirt. So I don't know where this part of the article is, so I guess he doesn't talk about... Oh, okay. It's nice that okay, Blabbermouth is doing interviews now, which is kind of competitive, isn't it? It's nice that you want to push positive energy. Not a lot of people are doing that now. Tony, it's pretty fucking grim, though. There's so much bullshit going on. I feel like our band is the one thing that people can relate to as far as unwinding and having a good time. I don't want to get into politics or any bullshit like that. It's one thing I regret. Nah, I have little regret over making that Donald Trump shirt. I don't want to push political agendas into shit, but also fuck that guy. I don't regret it. I don't want to be a preachy band. I never wanted to be, but at the time it felt right. Laughs. So I think, I guess it was that shirt was their top selling T-shirt. The provocative. I like I like things that are politically provocative. I totally endorse people doing satire to get their point across about things. So while this podcast does not have a political agenda, other than complete and utter support for freedom of speech and freedom of expression, that's one of the main things I talk about. And, that's one of the things I've stood up for in my entire life. Like, I could tell you that I was 11 years old and I was hearing about the PMRC and all the shit that was going on in Washington. And I was actually, like, starting to, oh my God, I'm going to have to compress this audio. It's not going very well. I was actually writing songs about it at 11, about the PMRC and stuff. Like, I was that invested in the freedom of speech thing. So I'm going to try to compress this audio. I'm trying to use less compression on my audio because sometimes it's kind of annoying. Chris Poland says he was bussing tables at Denny's after leaving Megadeth. I had to eat and pay the rent. Okay, so my thoughts are that what the hell is going on with the business of Megadeth that you would have to be forced to do that kind of thing? You can blame it on heroin, buying heroin. I'm going to turn the mic over and see if this works better. So I'm still experimenting with the audio of this podcast, by the way, if you can't already tell. So what is going on with the business of Megadeth if you are having to bus tables at a Denny's, or you're having to beg for money from management or whatever? It just sounds very like there's some lack of business acumen. That's not his fault, obviously, because he was only the lead guitarist that Mustaine, kind of told what to do, basically. So I'm gonna drink some more coffee. So yeah, it's kind of messed up to read that because you would have thought. I mean, it's not like they were Metallica at that big at the time. Sorry to compare the two, Dave. Well, I finally found the button that says more news, and I don't know why that was missing from this new layout, which I don't get, actually. I haven't been on Blabbermouth on this podcast in a long time, so advertise. Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm just going to read the more interesting ones. That's what I do, on this podcast. I'll go to the more interesting stories. So let's see. Kid Rock refuses to apologize for drunken rant attacking Oprah Winfrey. I don't know what happened with that. Let me read the article. Well, people get drunk and attack, these people and stuff. I don't know what crawled as far as he attacked Kathy Lee Gifford. I mean, okay, so I'm just going to put it this way. Well, he was on Tucker Carlson, I guess. Okay. I would say all these people deserve, all these huge media figures deserve, some criticism or, to be made fun of at least. So I don't mind that he makes fun of, I guess he was he didn't apologize. I don't know. It's pretty funny. Whatever. Let's see. Oh, Kathy Lee Gifford. I think that was the one that had the truff. Oh, Kathy Griffin. Oh, okay. This is a really funny story. I was trying to go after Kathy Griffin, for holding up Trump's head, which is another, she held this fake head of Trump with blood on it and stuff as a statement. But I'm so out of it, I'm like, fuck Kathy Lee Gifford. That's actually kind of funny. He mistook Kathy Griffin or Kathy Lee Gifford or whatever. That's pretty funny. I just found it funny to read that, I don't mind. I kind of take it with a grain of salt, like a lot of these people just saying, things about each other. I just think it's kind of, we need to like keep. I mean, obviously, if someone's a real threat to someone else, that's one thing. But just like satirizing things doesn't mean I think you should like even use that kind of imagery that I mentioned before. I'm just saying, I don't take it as seriously. Like if it's making a statement that they want to say, it's where if someone's outright lying about someone, or if they're actually like, well, I don't know. Depends on what's happened. Like if they have documented like lies that they've told and stuff. Let's see. So just looking over stuff. Wow. Okay. Okay. I don't care about that. I know that that's the case. All right. I will talk about this a little bit because this is some recent news. So I will do a crossover section of this because I was talking about this on my YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, which I will not name on this episode until I'm ready to admit that I'm under this other name, which probably people could discover pretty easily. But nevertheless, it's pretty edgy stuff. But Johnny Depp and Jeff Beck announced collaborative album 18 share first single. So my thoughts are that I've actually watched the whole trial, the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing. This is not related to metal, of course, but I guess it's on Blabbermouth. I guess he hung out with Metallica once. I found it pretty fascinating. I found a lot of things very interesting with that trial, and I kind of got more on this like kick lately, where I'm kind of finding out more about the guy and stuff. It's just I find it really interesting. Just the whole dynamics of his life and what happened and stuff. So I've been kind of looking into that a little bit. But anyways, that's not what this episode is about. As far as like rating him as a guitarist, I've heard some things that weren't, I mean, I haven't really heard anything that like blew me away, honestly. But like people that want to say he can't play at all and stuff, that's pretty misguided too. But like the Hollywood I'll just put it this way. So I heard of Hollywood Vampires. They cover a lot of Alice Cooper songs. Not a lot, but enough Alice Cooper songs because he's the singer of the main singer of the band. And I have not heard a Alice Cooper like lineup after like 1978 that has sounded more like the early 70s band than Hollywood Vampires do those songs. And that's, to me, that's a good thing. It's maybe means it's a little more sloppy, may mean it's a little bit more retro sounding. But I love that early Alice Cooper stuff. And for the Hollywood Vampires to kind of capture that vibe, sonically at least, I think kudos to them for that. So Johnny Depp is part of that, and I do like that. I think it's cool. Okay, here's an interesting one. Bill Gold is okay with Faith No More being an influence on new metal. So that's cool. I think new metal, I will never like new metal. I never liked it. There's a handful of bands I like or listen to that I even can pay attention to, that are considered that genre. It was always, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, new metal was like that annoying thing people would ask you if you liked, but you didn't, and you were kind of like awkwardly try to respond without seeming like an asshole. Of course, a lot of times I probably seemed like an asshole anyways, but so but I would say right now with our society, how how much there are waves of nostalgia that come over people. There probably will. That's probably one of the things that's next is new metal nostalgia. Now, as far as Faith No More influencing new metal, Faith No More are. I'm going to give them compliments. I bought Angel Dust more recently because I think I owned it on cassette, and I never listened to it, except for back in the day, like from other people usually. And I listened to it. I'm like, this is some fucking brilliant stuff. I mean, I know Arcturus was influenced by it, for example. I know a lot of bands were influenced by it. It is good stuff. Mr. Bungle, probably even better in some ways, too. I think they're both legendary bands of immense stature and musical talent. Just amazing. And for new metal to come out and basically take a couple elements and kind of exaggerate those elements, I don't think it's fair to Faith No More to say, well, it is an influence, but it's like, I don't even want to speak of them in the same sentence, honestly. Like, I think Faith No More is far superior. Faith No More, I'm going to give a list of bands that I think are superior to new metal and kind of were the precursors. I think Helmet is a great band. I liked. I only recently got into them. Back in the day, I thought they were okay, but I think they're great. I think Faith No More are great. Mr. Bungle. I think. I'm not okay. So I'm going to say just the bands that I like that are kind of precursors. I think Suicidal Tendencies are definitely kind of have that vibe. Maybe not in the same way as Faith No More, but like they don't, maybe not musically, but attitude wise, like a lot of, I think there's stuff like Art of Rebellion, for example, is one of the first albums that wasn't like a shred instrumental album like Steve Vai that had 7-string guitar on it. Undoubtedly, that was an influence on nu metal. I mean, it was musically, to me, it's far superior, of course, but the problem I think I have with nu metal is that there's so much grunge, 90s like tropes and cliches still left into it. It's like you can hardly call it metal because like a lot of it's the alternative cliches. You have like this whiny, nasally vocal that sounds like a half-assed Trent Reznor, who I do like Nine Inch Nails, or half-assed Lane Staley. Like I'm not going to mention the name of the band that I heard the song today, but it was a famous nu metal song by one of the pioneers of that genre. And I heard these influences and I'm just like, dude, I just don't think it was, it's just missing that, solidity that metal it has, like actual metal or whatever you want to call it. So, or whatever. All right, so I'll go back to, that was a rant. The rant is over about nu metal and Faith No More. So there were other influences too, of course. How are we looking at time? So I am going to look and see if there's any more news. I haven't been on here in a while. Arch Enemy has a new album. I'll check that out. I'm not going to talk about that. John Corabi. Alec John Such has died, who is the bass player sometimes in Bon Jovi. And why I say, this is the second to last article I'm going to mention. Well, actually, not really, because I'm going to mention this other article to lean into the subject of this episode. So I have heard a lot of rumors that Alex John Such did not play on many of the Bon Jovi albums. And I guess the most, to add insult to injury, I don't think he played on New Jersey. And he's in the Born to Be My Baby video, which is like a pseudo like recording session video where he plays bass. Like, why would you do, it's like very meta. Like, why would you have your fake bass player? I guess I get it. That's the concept of the video, but it's just really insulting. Like, if I were him, I would have felt insulted by that. Like, if you're not even playing on the albums, I don't know. I think he did play on the first two albums. He was chosen partly, I think he was probably chosen for his playing too, but like partly for his good looks. And I guess they got a session guy because this is just a rumor I heard. I don't know if this is all bullshit. They got a session guy on, everything including Slippery When Wet and After, because he was on drugs or something and couldn't play as well on the albums or something at the time, so they just kind of stuck with that format. He would do the tours, which is pretty sad if it's true. And then you have the reason why given for the other guy not being the bass player until more recently, or the last 20 years or so or whatever, is because he was older and not as good looking or whatever. I mean, that's some of the biggest poserish bullshit. A shout out, to Ralph Vieira, also known as Dr. Fuck, for talking about this whole thing on Metal Voice a couple weeks ago. Like, one of Bon Jovi's biggest poserish things that he did more recently is say, oh, I'm not associated with hair metal. And he never tours with the bands. He denies his past. It's like you were part of this scene, dude. I mean, you jump-started the careers of Cinderella and Skid Row. You helped jump-start the careers. You were part of this scene, dude. You got to own up to it. Oh, you can have your alternative, adult, contemporary, fucking countrified, whatever bullshit you do now, but you were still part of this. You just own up to it. What's wrong with it? And I think it's part of that, like, 90s anti-metal bigotry, I dare call it bigotry, that's still left over and with a lot of these guys, especially if they're older and they're not as with it, like... The newer generations, dude, don't hate this stuff as much. Seriously. Like, the newer generations don't think of, like, hair metal as, like, necessarily always a bad thing. You know, like, some of the guitarists I've played with in, like, various projects are much younger. One guy in particular is like, oh, yeah, I love Dokken. But he liked a lot of metalcore, too. But it's like, it's not as, like, segregated as it used to be. Dude, you don't have to be ashamed. Yeah, I know James Hetfield had his Kill Bon Jovi thing on his guitar and all that stuff, and the darts against the hair metal guys, and it was a bad time. You know, you were shamed for dressing like that by the Thrashers, but still, dude, at this point in time, who gives a shit, you know? So anyways, that's enough of that rant. All right, so second to last thing I'm talking about in the news segment here. Metallica's Kirk Hammett to post Napster music industry changes. We warned everything that this was going to happen. Okay, we could say that, but it was going to happen regardless of what you did, what legislation, what kind of, what kind of actions you took towards downloading was not going to stop it because it was a beast that you could not control. If millions of people, billions of people are communicating, remotely on a web system, they're going to share their music with each other, period. And if you legislate, and the way that they approached this was totally out of proportion with what happened. I mean, like in the mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006, there were all these lawsuits against grandmothers that shared music because their son like downloaded a bunch of albums or something, on a torrent or whatever. Just absolutely disgusting, like millions of dollars. Like sometimes they were charged like hundreds of thousands of dollars, these like working class people. And it's just like the hubris that Metallica and Lars Ulrich had at the time. Now, of course they were right, quote unquote, of course, but I still buy physical music. Many people I know do. If you're good enough, you're going to sell at least a couple of thousand or million copies of your music. I mean, not if you're good enough, but if you're good enough and have a good enough exposure, which obviously happens for various reasons or not. So, I don't know. I think it's I like Steve Harris back in the day. How he responded to it. He's like, well, we like playing live anyways. We don't have an opinion about downloading an album. It's probably better if you buy it. He's more neutral about it, I think, at the time. And you know who came out as less of a douchebag in the end was Steve Harris and Iron Maiden. Like, they weren't mocked and hated like Metallica were after that Napster thing, because if they went too far, they could have worked with Napster or something and said, oh, well, maybe we'll do this. Maybe we can figure out a way to revise this or do something new with this. Like, oh, this is an exciting time. Yeah, it came about. It's just like just thought of this right now. Like, I think Aerosmith's live album, Live Bootleg, was an actual bootleg they discovered and they just paid for and they released. I don't know if that's true or not. I have to look it up. But, like, work with the people that are doing things like that. Work with them. I mean, Metallica used to work with those people. They had the Snake Pit where you can tape all their shows and stuff, back in the Black Album days. But the hubris and the cocaine and the expensive art in Lars's case and lack of drumming practice got to their heads, Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about Metallica, by the way, which I don't know if they're kosher for this for a podcast, just in case I do get the chance of interviewing one of those guys. I don't know. All right, so we're going to get to the subject of today's episode. And that is this headline right here, June 7th, 2022. Kiss backing tracks. Accusations revived. After Eric Singer, the drummer, who is a great drummer, by the way, mistake at Antwerp concert. A rare mistake by Kiss drummer Eric Singer during the band's concert in Antwerp, Belgium on Monday has revealed what some fans are saying is proof that Kiss is using pre-recorded tracks during its performances. Several Kiss fans who have attended the June 6th show at I don't know how to pronounce that, have shared video of Kiss kicking off the set with Detroit Rock City, the classic song that's consistently served as a live opener for the band's live performances in recent years. The end of the track, Kiss, who has played with Kiss on and off since 1991, apparently forgets to rest for a measure. According to YouTube commenter Austin Oganowski, instead continuing to play the standard beat for 2 additional measures. After Eric realizes he messes up, he begins the drum roll breakdown on measure late, which means Paul Stanley's vocal track is out of sync with what the band is actually playing. Austin explained, Paul's track plays every guy who's got at least their seat, completely out of sync with the song and when nobody is at a mic. Okay. And there's many videos on YouTube and elsewhere where you can watch this kind of thing happen in Kiss shows. So, my background with Kiss, I've talked about it in previous episodes to some extent, but I had this brother-in-law that, was into Kiss, and somehow we talked about Kiss, and then he had the first Kiss album. I listened to it when I was a kid. I was like, I really like this. I don't know what it was about it, because at the time, I was very... I was not into like songs about sex and stuff, but I was a teenager, so it was there was a little bit of interest there, I mean, it was starting to have interest in that because, like, I think earlier I was offended by that kind of stuff because I grew up all politically correct and stuff. So, but it was a little bit. But of course, I didn't take it too far. But I just love the music and the melodies and stuff and riffs. So I got into Kiss, and I bought Alive and Alive 2, and I had the first Kiss album, and later that was after I wasn't back into them, but later I bought Destroyer at a certain point. I listened to that a lot, but I was like in between a really hardcore Kiss fan and a casual fan and also a detractor because I read all these interviews with Gene Simmons, and I just thought he seemed like outrageous douchebag in a lot of ways. Like, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not going to shame anybody for having groupies, but the way that he like organized the whole idea of it and and contextualized it and compartmentalized it up to and including taking Polaroids of all these women that he had sex with and all this stuff supposedly, and counting it how he did, which the number did change various interviews, by the way, if I remember correctly. I found it to be sleazy and disingenuous and dumb, and I'm not going to call it sexist. I'm not going to go that far, but it's just stupid. And then the reunion happened too around that same time, or was happening, and I was like, his statements about money and stuff. I knew that, like, I don't think they said they were in it for the money, but it's just the people writing about it. I was like, this is all fake, because you had 12, 13 years of Kiss without makeup, without the original members other than Gene and Paul. What made them get into this, what possessed them to do this now? Well, all this stuff was happening because of the grunge movement was very 70s loving, even if they hated. If Kiss came out in the 80s and had the exact same music, exact same sound, exact same look, some of these grunge rockers would hate it just because of that. Just because it was from the 80s, even if they liked the stuff from the 70s. It seems like a band that sounded exactly the same they would hate, because it's 80s metal. It's wanky. That's what they used. That's the word they used to use in the 90s about metal from the 80s. It's wanky. So I stopped listening to Kiss around that time because I just thought, oh my God, this is just so over the top, like in this direction I don't like. It's like total sellout stuff, and I don't know if I just lost interest or what, but a few years later I started listening to Destroyer, and I really liked it, but I didn't really delve deeply into it. And by then I was kind of starting to accept Kiss the way, just for who they were, and not
politicize it, quote unquote, that much. But recently, maybe about 2012, not recently, but 2012, 2013, I had this interest in getting into like bands that had these bad albums that they hated, like Cold Lake, Saint Anger, and Music from the Elder. And I listened to Music from the Elder, and I fell in love with Kiss again. And ever since, I've been like, I have Kiss shirts, and I've been into them, including some Bulgarian shirts, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I got into Kiss more recently, or relatively recently to how old I am, I should say. But like even Carnival of Souls, I like too. So I talked about this on a previous interview with someone. So, but the Kiss thing. So, it was around. Yeah, I mean, I know that it. I think it is hyperbolic to say that Gene Simmons is only in it for the money or the getting laid or whatever. Just like Paul Stanley, does say is into the music. I think he genuinely is into the music to some extent and stuff like that. But let's just put that aside. So Kiss has consistently done stuff that is just totally disingenuous and very shady and unethical. Sometimes bands can do stuff like this. Like I read somewhere that they paid people to I don't know if they paid for a good review. I don't think it was a good review. It was some kind of thing where they promoted their band. It was a little bit shady back in the early days. And I'd have to read it again, but it was I think it was in Ace's autobiography. I've read most of the autobiographies, by the way. The best one to read, if you read any kind of rock autobiography, period, I think is one of the best. It's Peter Criss's Make Up to Break Up. It is an absolute masterpiece. Even if it's not, I don't know how true it is, but it's great to read. So it's pretty funny too. So my whole thing with Kiss was, okay, so I accepted them. I know they're sleazy guys, to some extent. They lie about who's on their albums sometimes. And people they think the fans don't care and all this shit. They think, oh, well, who cares if it was on the albums? And, but there's backlash, of course, just like with, Sharon Osbourne re-recording the first two Ozzy albums with different members other than Randy Rhoads and Ozzy. It's like, and Don Airey, I think, too. But it's just, it's very disingenuous and sleazy for what they do as far as music stuff goes. It turns me off quite a bit, a lot of the moves they make. So some of their interviews and some of what they say too, you lose a few brain cells sometimes, reading Kiss interviews or listening to them sometimes. I think Gene Simmons is a very intelligent man, by the way. I think he's really smart. And I think Paul Stanley's pretty smart. I mean, I think he's really smart too. But recently, the last 5-7 years, we've heard, Gene Simmons say, he was bashing people that use backing tracks. And in 2015, he did an interview. He's like, why, because more bands were using backing tracks. And then it comes out that Paul Stanley's voice isn't what it was. They're tuning down extra, lower, and he's sounding really strained and stuff. And then it comes out in 2019 that he's using backing tracks, and this is more proof of that. So my whole thing is that Kiss should have ended after the End of the Road tour. And I think that was 2000, 2001. They should have ended on a high note. It wasn't a high note, obviously, but, on a high note as far as the original members go. They should have quit, and they should have, they could do musical projects. But to be on the road year after year in that makeup at age, 60, 70 years old, not that that's a big deal, and not that that's wrong, but just doing it over and over again, not even admitting that, and even that they contradicted themselves on Peter and Ace being identified with their makeup, because originally that's why they got Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent different makeup, because they're not Peter, Chris, and Ace Frehley. And even up till a certain point in the 90s or 2000s, they said the same thing about the makeup. And at this point, it's like they have two guys that are not Peter and Ace wearing their makeup and their costumes, and their performances aren't what they used to be, and they sound very choreographed and don't have that feel that the classic Kiss did. And I saw some of that feel. And what I mean by this, so if you watch like the Gene Simmons vault, so if people don't know what this is, he was selling this like really overpriced like box set of all his like personal recordings he's done since the 60s and stuff. And he did like these performances with Ace Frehley, these very limited performances where they just jam, on camera or on a, I don't know if they did it at people's homes that you could pay. I think it was part of the vault, like, if you paid for the full vault experience, for a limited number of people, they went to people's houses and jammed, just the two without a drummer or anything. But you listen to those two play, and you start to hear what the classic Kiss sounds like compared to the new lineup. It's like this raw feel and this way of playing, this shuffling, like this way that the chemistry happens there. You listen to the two together. So they don't have that anymore because the chemistry is off these guys. Eric Singer is an absolute stalwart of great drumming. I think he was great with Alice Cooper. He's great on, the Kiss album Revenge and Carnival of Souls. But he's not Peter Criss. He's just not the same type of drummer. So he underplays on purpose. And then you have Tommy Thayer, who's very clinical and precise as far as Ace's solos, but misses the feel of those solos, the soul of those solos. I'd rather hear Bruce Kulick shred out all the Ace solos and play something a little different than hear Tommy Thayer trying to like pull these notes out that he doesn't like have the same feel. He just doesn't know how to emote in the same way. A lot of people call that slop. Maybe Ace Frehley is sloppier than Tommy Thayer, but it sounds right for Kiss the way he does it, period. So those are my gripes with Kiss, and then, not to mention just their set lists, and they're just boring, like, just, I don't know, it's very predictable. But then we have this lip-syncing controversy, and I just have to say this: if you cannot cut it on stage, it's time to go home. It's time to retire. It doesn't mean that you can't play any music on stage, but as far as these huge tours, these huge, trying to play this stuff that you can sing really well when you're in your 20s and you're in your 70s, trying to hit those notes. You can try to use backing tapes, auto-tune, even though auto-tune is used for a different purpose usually. All this stuff, you can try to hide it, but you're not going to... a lot of people are fooled, unfortunately, but, you're not going to fool anybody that really knows a thing or two about music at this point. I think it's just it's a waste of time for these guys to do this. And in lieu of a lot of musicians that are coming out now, or have in the last 10, 15 years even, that are equal, or at least half as good as some of these classic bands. Case in point, Sweden has so many bands coming out. There's Heat, there's Nestor, there's I think Crash Diet's from Finland. Maybe. There's Crazy Licks. There's all these bands coming out. They have the 80s or 70s or whatever sound that they slay at it. They're great, and people are paying attention to the newest Kiss concert. It's the band Heat in particular is one of my favorites, and why they're not playing the same size arenas as Kiss, I don't know, because they're equally, they write great songs, they do great, music, and I especially like the previous album that they just, they came out in 2020. I don't know why that wasn't. I mean, obviously, I know why that wasn't as big as it could have been, but February 2020 wasn't the time to release an album. But pretty much, they'd go on tour. But if it equally probably at least it could rival some of the stuff from the 80s and stuff. So you have all these bands that are just trying to milk every penny from their fans and giving them a substandard or a fraudulent show. Because Gene Simmons said, if a band uses backing tracks, he said this in his interview, they should write it on the ticket. If Paul Stanley is using backing tracks for his main vocals, they should write on the ticket, reduce the ticket price. I'm sure it's hundreds of dollars for a decent ticket for a Kiss, So it's ridiculous. Like, you have someone like David Coverdale, Whitesnake. He's acknowledged that his voice isn't what it used to be. They tune lower in Whitesnake now. But I will tell you, I would prefer him over most of these other guys that are having these problems, because he really puts his all into the singing too, and he tries. But he also is humble enough to know that, it's not going to last forever. He's telling people it's his last tour. I don't know if it will be or not. And he has another guy helping him out, most importantly. Dino Jelisic, who is he's on, I think he's the guy who's on some of the Michael Romeo solo albums too, and he has some other bands. But he sounds a lot like David Coverdale. And I mean, I think more bands are going to be doing this, even bands with like a namesake singer that has to have some help. They'll have some guy on the side come out and help them out. I think Gamma Ray did this too, because Kai Hansen's just like, yeah, my vocals aren't what they used to be. I'll still sing some of the songs. Like Bon Jovi came out and his vocals are just something's not right. But he's not humble enough to come out and say, oh, my vocals aren't good. Maybe I'll have someone else help out. And, I realize it, and he just wants to. The main point is that you're charging all this money basically for like a meet and greet with some karaoke music and some live music, or not karaoke, lip-synced music. It's like, that's totally unethical to rock and roll, period. And I know people talk about rock and roll and, but it's just like, it's the dumbest thing ever. I just think it's really bad and really shitty. David Coverdale could do low-key acoustic blues, folk, rock, or whatever. And even after he retires, some of these guys can still sing. Some of them can recover, too. I mean, if you're touring all the time, your voice is not going to be in the best shape, but sometimes you recover. Have surgery. Find some kind of coach that can help you at least get halfway there. One guy in particular that I know who really recovered is Tom Kiefer of Cinderella. I know it's pretty poserish for some of my listeners to talk about from back in the day, at least, like their hair metal and, whatever. But Tom Kiefer says that he practices like an hour and a half a day. He had vocal training. He had like 3 surgeries on his throat or something. But I heard some recent clips. He still sounds great. He's up there. I think he's the same age as Bon Jovi. But he took it into his own hands. Some of these guys could do that. They're so bad. They have so many bad habits, and they're so in their bubble. They're of yes men and women, and their organization. They, like Bon Jovi probably has a corporation that basically is Bon Jovi, and they say yes to him. They know his vocals sound like shit. But with Paul Stanley, Paul Stanley is a fraud. At least Bon Jovi is singing a lot most of the time. Now, if Paul Stanley is using like a huge percentage of backing vocals at this point, that's actual fraud. I think, and I'm not saying that someone should sue Kiss, but to me it's just disgusting to say that you're going to a live show and you hear pre-recorded vocals. That would be unimaginable 20 years ago. You had the Milli Vanilli thing. I think you had Ashley Simpson. You had all these controversies. People were complaining and just going off the rails about it. Milli Vanilli broke up. I think they later did an album on their own called Rob and Fab, where they learned how to sing and stuff, but they broke up essentially because of their lip-syncing controversy that they had. And the story goes is that they went, and they're not metal, obviously, they're pop, which makes it even more crazy that we're talking about metal or rock. That's unimaginable in metal and rock. In pop, it's okay, you probably might have some backing vocals or some pre-recorded stuff, but in metal and rock, having pre-recorded shit, obviously I can accept keyboards, I can accept triggered drums, I can accept maybe a pre-recorded bass, pre-recorded backing vocals, but main lead vocals that are pre-recorded for a show, that is unacceptable, unethical, and fraudulent. It's awful. And they should be ashamed of themselves for lying and playing mental gymnastics, gaslighting their fucking audience for this whole thing. It's a debacle. People should be refunded some of their money for their Kiss tickets. I am serious. I am really, really pissed about this. I think it's disgusting. I think it's fucking abominable to do that to people. I'm a huge Kiss fan. I love Kiss. I'm looking at a Kiss poster right now in my room. It's a Love Gun poster. It's right over there. But I think it's awful. It's fraud. It's unethical. If you're going to do it, tell people you're doing it. Have a little disclaimer on the ticket. Some tracks might be pre-recorded to ensure your best possible Kiss experience or something like that, But it's awful. It's like it's time to let go. It's time to let it go. If you think you cannot sing enough, if you think you have to use pre-recorded vocals because you can't sing, you can't do it. Even Bon Jovi is better in this situation because I think I might have heard he might be using pre-recorded vocals, but there's nothing confirmed like with Kiss doing it so many times that they're being caught all these times. If Bon Jovi's not, because he's like, oh, it's all live, like he was saying it was all live during one of the shows I saw. He sounds like total ass, but at least it's live. At least even he's in a better position. I mean, Paul Stanley's vocals aren't what they were even with the pre-recorded ones, but still, it's like disgusting. It's abominable, a despicable thing to do to your audience. Why are you lying to them about it? Why are you trying to tell them? You're trying to act like this is like some great grand thing. This final tour. But you're playing these shows where there's pre-recorded main lead vocals. You're lip-syncing. It's a fucking fraud. It's a sham. It's a scam. And this is not the first time that Kiss has done something kind of egregiously unethical in their careers. Obviously, there is a long history of many different things. As much as I love Kiss, I love the Alive albums. I love The Elder even. I love Creatures of the Night. I love Love Gun. I love Rock and Roll Over. Even like Dynasty. I think they are impeccably talented geniuses of music, able to not only write songs that, of their genre, but like able to like mimic other people's genres to the extent where they have hits with them. Like case in point, I Was Made for Loving You. Like they were able to have a disco hit, even with little experience. I know Desmond Child helped out, and Vincent Passia, but for Paul Stanley come up with a lot of that. They know how to. Even like Hard Luck Woman, that was like a song where it's like a Rod Stewart song. They're able to like mimic, and even with was a band before Kiss. Wicked Lester, like they were able to do that with Wicked Lester too. Like they were able to like mimic a lot of musical styles at the time. I mean, I always thought I think of them as like the midpoint between New York Dolls and Black Sabbath. People don't understand Kiss, and I tell them that, and I think in a mind, if you imagine this, like I think you get what I'm trying to say. That's what they are, or in between New York Dolls and Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or something like that. That's what Kiss are. That's the space that they inhabit. Even though I think they could have been a little bit more like in line with their theatrics. Like they were like at times like God of Thunder, or Almost Human, or The Elder were more in line with where their music was in line with their theatrics and their lyrics and stuff. But it's whatever. I love Kiss, so I do love Kiss, and I've read every autobiography. But for the love of Mammon or God or whatever, I don't know. For the love of Mammon, for the love of Gene Simmons's bank account, or his fucking his Polaroid collection and whatever, please stop lip syncing. And if you're gonna lip sync, please tell us that you're doing it, because you're bordering on fraud. I mean, you should it'd be hilarious if someone tried to sue them, like security or the SEC or whoever would handle that. I don't know. Just like get a injunction against Kiss for lying to their audience. But yeah, they've done some shady shit through the years, obviously. I forgot about this other thing. So this is part of the reason why I stopped listening to Kiss in the 90s and stuff for a while, up until 10 years ago. Stuff. I read this interview this is like late 90s, early 2000s. I read an interview in Metal Maniacs that it was from Bobby Liebling, the singer of Pentagram. And he claims that Gene and Paul went to his house in the 70s and offered to buy songs from him, and some Pentagram songs that were unreleased, and use them as Kiss songs and say that they wrote it. Now, I think I talked about this previously, unless it was one of my videos, okay. So at the time I believed him, and because it seemed like something they would do. Now I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle where, because they did actually have some songs like that where they did kind of buy songs from other people and put their names on them. They also put those guys' names on the songs too, usually. Case in point, Rock and Roll Hell, which I think, if I remember correctly, Bachman Turner Overdrive have something to do with that song, and they gave them credit on the album. I forgot who wrote that song. It was Bryan Adams or Adam Valance, because strangely enough, Bryan Adams had something to do, had some Kiss experience writing some Kiss songs, along with, of course, Vinnie Vincent, who we all know, who wrote some of the songs on Creatures of the Night, which was a comeback album. I guess they decided that their comeback album, I don't consider it a comeback album. I love The Elder, but it is officially their comeback album in the 80s, was Creatures of the Night. But the thing is, with the decision was obviously made to use a lot of outside songwriters. My point being is, when they use outside songwriters, regardless of who they are, they usually credit them. So the Pentagram story is plausible partly, but also I've heard Bobby Liebling some things about his tendency to stretch some things at times. I'm not saying that he does. I'm just saying I've heard things about that. It doesn't mean it's true. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this up. I think get my opinion about what Kiss are doing with the lip syncing, if it's true. Same goes for Dream Theater. Same goes for anybody that's caught doing this. I understand where they're coming from. In a way, you want to keep touring. You want to keep the machine rolling. You want to keep the dollars coming in. And if someone can't deliver on stage, you're gonna have some shortcuts, right? But just tell us what we're getting. It's just so false. It's just so poserish, It's just it's so fake, And Kiss have done a lot of things that are fake, no doubt. But this is one of the worst things that Kiss have done, as far as that stuff goes. It's an awful thing to do, and I think it needs to stop. It either needs to stop, or he needs to sing all raw, however bad he sounds now. Or get someone else. I mean, I would even be open to someone else off stage helping him out with some of those vocals. At least it's live. There's rumors that Judas Priest did that at the end of their tenure with Dave Holland. There's rumors about that they had a different drummer for Ram It Down part of the tour and stuff, but he was backstage and they would both play and stuff. I don't know if it was Jeff, what was his name? From Racer X, the singer. I'm not sure who it was exactly, but they allegedly had a drummer help them out for a while. So that's kind of weird too. More stuff like that did happen in the 80s than most people know. A lot of stuff that was kind of a little underhanded by the music industry and stuff. All the things that happened with Black Sabbath and Ozzy, and this guy played on this album but wrote all the lyrics, but then he was sued and doesn't have credit on the album. Just all this stuff that happened. This guy was in the photo session but doesn't play on the album, etc. But Kiss were one of the first bands to do that, never forget, too. One of the first bands in the rock, big rock, hard rock, heavy metal genre to do that kind of stuff with Dynasty and Unmasked. Because Peter Criss played on neither one, but he's in the photos like he's a normal member of the band. It's just, to me, it's just kind of shitty to do that. I just think it's just so fake, you know? It's just so damn fake. I mean, just be real with your fans. Be real with people that have played. The biggest insult to injury is the money. If they were selling these tickets for a discount rate because part of it's not live, then fine. But you're telling people they have to fork out hundreds of dollars expecting all live material, which is bullshit. But that's about all. I'm going to probably try to get some more guests in the next coming weeks for this podcast. I have some people in mind. And I'm going to try to get some more interviews too. I mean, I would love to. There's certain people I want to interview. I've been actually listening to a lot of old Pantera, Glamterra as they call it. Terry Glaze would be a great interview. I think that would be awesome. But I have a lot of people in mind that I want to interview in the future. But that's about all. And have a great weekend.